Hello and welcome to Memphis Sounds Lounge Show presented by Star News VIP. As always, we have a great and wonderful show for today. We have an awesome individual who has made some significant changes that have not just impacted Memphis, but people all around the nation, and also has encouraged people from all around the globe. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you the one and only Honorable Judge Bernice Donald. Welcome to the show today.
Good morning, Pastor Williams. It's great to be here.
And we're glad to have you here as well. This is an awesome moment because, we've had a street naming for you here in Memphis, Tennessee, which is very exciting to see a significant person with a street naming after them. But I want to get into some things, and we want to build this up from where you come from, where were you born, raised, and all of that. Can you tell us more about that?
Pastor Williams, first of all, I am so honored to be on the show. And I am really, truly honored by the trust reposed in me by the citizens of the city of Memphis. I grew up about 20 miles south of the Memphis city line in Olive Branch, Mississippi. My parents were wonderful, faith-filled people who taught us the value of hard work early. And the work opportunities at that time were very limited. It was a largely agrarian society. I was one of 10 children. My parents worked hard for, like most people in that community, for low wages, long days, and they taught us the value of honest work. So growing up in Olive Branch, it was in a very different time. I grew up during the time of intense segregation. There was no mixing of races on a social basis at that time. So even though I grew up and began school 3 years after the Brown versus the Board of Education decision, the first one of which was in 1954, the second, the remedies phase in 1955. When I began school in a two-room cinder block school with no running water, no classrooms, no cafeteria. Grades 1 and 2 were in one room, and grade 3 was in the other room. The other Black kids who went to school from grades 4 through 8 went to school in the single-room Black church. And there was for them a single teacher who taught all of those grades. They would pull together certain pews for grade 4, for example, another series of pews for grade 5, and on and on and on. And Mississippi was comfortable in the notion that separate is equal, even though my white counterparts had at that time, a very appropriate school that was large and modern and with classrooms and indoor plumbing and all of that stuff. In 1966, after the federal government had told Mississippi, if you don't desegregate your schools, there will be no more federal education money, the state decided to desegregate. They implemented the choice plan, and Black children in elementary school could then go to the white school. That became available for high school students in 67, and I enrolled in the previously all-white school in 1967. It was...
What grade were you then?
I was beginning the 11th grade at that time, so I went to segregated schools from the first grade through the 10th grade, and then I transitioned. But I'm one of 10 children. My parents were loving to all of us, and really tried to teach us what they knew. And what they knew was hard work, honest work, and church on Sunday.
Now, with that hard work and honest work and church on Sunday, how were your grades in school between 1st and 10th grade as well as 11th and 12th grade?
I was always an honor student. I really enjoyed learning. And through school, I could become acquainted with a world that was larger and far beyond anything that I experienced at home. And so I loved books. I loved reading. I was an honor student at the Black school. And when I transitioned at the beginning of my 11th grade year, I thought I would immediately be an honor student at Olive Branch. But much like sports, I had to sit out a year because I think there was some concern about whether or not the quality of education at the Black school was equal to the one at the white school. So I sat out my 11th grade year. And then in my senior year, I was elected to the Honor Society. I was the only Black student on the Honor Society at the new school. I need to tell you that when I went to the white school,
Yes.
I was one of 4 students, all African American women, who were in that class. And we were bonded together. We had the same experiences. We learned a lot, and we had resources that we didn't have at the black school. But I want to say to the teachers who were at the black school, in that school, I started at Union, but in the 3rd grade, Mississippi built a proper school for black students. I call it a Plessy versus Ferguson compliant school because it did have classrooms and, a teacher for every classroom. It had indoor toilets. It had a cafeteria. It had a lab, no equipment for the lab. We still got the books that came to our school after they were discontinued at the white school. So our books came highlighted and margin notes and dog-eared and underlined.
Used books.
Absolutely. But our teachers did a great job because they were really committed to our learning. They did, as my parents saw education as a great leveler. If you get an education, no one can take it from you. If you get an education, you can chart your own future. And that was important because I think more than anything, we have to believe in ourselves, and it helps for somebody else to believe that we can do it, that we can be whatever we see.
Yes.
And conversely, we can't be what we can't see. And so it's important to keep reinforcing that message.
Right.
So I graduated an honor student. Unfortunately, because of the times, no one expected black kids at that new school to go to college.
Correct.
And there was no encouragement. In fact, there was an express prohibition from giving any black kids any information about college. So if you were to quiz me today, I can't tell you how I made my way from high school to college. I do know that I went to the closest school I could go to, and that was Memphis State University. But how I found out how to enroll and how to work that process, I couldn't tell you, because I was the first person in my family to go to college. And I was the 6th person, number 6 from the top, or as I like to say, the beginning of the second 5.
Well, Judge, I want to also welcome you to the show. My name is Nesby Blanchard, and we have Adam Holyfield, also who are co-hosting here today. And since you're talking about University of Memphis, or Memphis State as it was called, can you give us an idea of what made you want to be in the legal profession? Why would you pick that as a profession, having no experience and no previous people from your family doing it? What will make you want to be in the law profession?
As much as I would love to give you the short answer, I'm going to have to give you the long answer today. When I decided to go to college, there were 2 professions with which I was acquainted: teachers and preachers. And all the preachers that I knew were male. And so that left teaching, and I really loved teaching. I've always been a teacher at heart.
Okay.
And I decided I was going to go to school and become a teacher.
Okay.
My mother vetoed that because there was a person in our community who was not well regarded, and she measured the teaching profession
Based
by
on
that person.
Oh,
So she said, no, you're not going to do that. And that left me with no alternative. So I went to school, and I thought, okay, I'll be a librarian.
Okay.
Because I love the library.
Of course.
And I'm not sure that she knew exactly what that was, so she didn't veto it. And I went to school and majored in library science. And I took a sociology course, loved it, aced it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to major in this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What got me into the law, though, to answer your question more directly, I have always, I think, been a volunteer at heart. And while I was in college, I volunteered at a number of things, and then post-graduation, I volunteered at juvenile court. At the time in juvenile court, it was a lot different than it is now.
Okay.
And children were being detained
Wow.
for status offenses. So if a child were truant, the child could be detained. And I became an auxiliary or volunteer probation officer,
Yes.
had a nice caseload, and really had great empathy for children. I was in court one day observing, and there was a young boy. He looked like he might have been, 8 or 9 years old. He was before the judge. And the judge, I think he had been truant or something. But anyway, the judge had him brought out, and the judge lectured him severely. And then the judge said, okay, I'm going to let you go home, but if you come back again, I'm going to send you to Tall Trees. That was the name of a detention
I remember
facility.
the name, yes.
Okay. And you could see the relief on the child's face. About that time, there was a very elderly man. He was stooped and steeped in respect for the court and the process. He had an old hat, and he clutched the hat to himself and rose slowly and said, Judge, Your Honor, I'm his grandfather, and I can't take care of him.
Wow.
And the judge said, who are you again? And he said, I'm his grandfather.
Yes.
The judge said, are you saying he cannot go home with you? And the man said, no, because I can't take care of him. The child is hearing all of this.
Wow.
And then the judge turned to the young child and said, since you have no place to go, I'm going to have to send you to Tall Trees.
Yeah.
And tears just started rolling down the child's face. And I felt helpless.
That's profound.
And I felt sad. And out of that experience, I decided I'm going to go to law school so that I can represent children. Now, I have to fully disclose that today, after some 43 years in the profession, I have never represented a child, but that's what got me there.
That's what got you.
And I try to work with children in other ways because I really do believe that, and I think about this often, when we cast our eyes toward 201 Poplar, the local jail,
Exactly.
every person in that facility was once an adorable baby, filled full of promise, expectation. And we don't come into this world with a desire to do things that transgress the law and to hurt people. Something happens.
Circumstances.
So I think my quest still is to try and find as many ways as I can to influence people and ultimately to help children, because as are our children, so is our world.
I agree. Well, Adam, did you have a...
So since you like helping children, and what would you recommend for not just us, but everyone listening? What could we do different in this city that right now, unfortunately, there's a lot of uncertainty, not only in the world, but mainly in the city in which we live. We want to concentrate on where we are. What would you recommend people to do to change the situation that we're in right now, to make it better?
Adam, thank you for the question. And I think it's one that will take a myriad of measures to impact our course. But I think it's important, and I think we can do it. First of all, you can never start reading to a child too early. Children, babies, respond to touch. I cannot tell you the number of children who grow up without having someone on a constant basis show them, model love and compassion and holding and caring. There's a book that was focused on the life of a psychopath, and they say that when they followed this child's life, who's now a grown man who's hurt people, one of the things that happened, he was left alone in the crib when he cried. Nobody came. And he did not experience the touch and the embrace
Empathy.
of a loving parent.
Yeah.
We have to start early on. First of all, you can start reading to a child in the womb. You can start giving them music. And I know, Mr. Blanchard, that you're really into music. You can start influencing them with music. The brain develops early, and there are complex forms of music. And I'm not just going to say that it's classical, but music that soothes and assures and teaches. The other thing, I don't know, you probably saw the movie The Help. Remember, we have always said to other people, you're kind, you're beautiful and you're important. But we don't say that to enough children while they're growing. They need to know that they are special, that they are kind, that they are beautiful, that they are important. They hear the negative messages, but they don't hear the positive messages on a consistent basis. And then we have to understand as a society, it's not just one size fits all. Now, there's a role for government also. we are allowing our community to, while we don't use redlining anymore, there are portions of our community that are in deep deprivation. If you don't fuel your brain and you don't fuel your body, how can it be an efficient machine? So we need to make certain that people in communities are able to survive and have fresh food and have things that nourish the body. My folks were, uh, if you looked at it on the poverty scale, poor, but they did not suffer from a poverty of the spirit. We grew our food. We had fresh food all the time because we grew it. My folks could not afford to go to the grocery store and buy their meats and vegetables, and so they grew it and they slaughtered and they cured, and so we had that. The other thing I want to say is community starts in the home. Uh, if you went around and took a poll, a lot of people in communities never share a meal and conversation. You might be in at the same table at the same time, but people are on the phones, on the computer, the TV is going, people are working, darting in and out, but we have to build community in units. And so those are some of the things. And let me say, last but not least, until that person gets to the point where they realize the importance of spirituality and faith, we have to teach that early on. I mean, I resented having to get up and go to church, on Sundays and go sometimes on Wednesdays and then during revival, go every night. But as I said, our parents taught us what they knew, and that has become a real value for me today. And I can talk openly about that faith. There's a place for all of that and that value system. You can't teach it, but you model it. My mother always told us, always give a full day's work for a full day's pay, because anything less than that, Adam, is stealing. And that is against the word of God.
Yeah. And the main thing I took from the movie, The Help, let's go back to that, was don't eat anybody else's pie. Okay.
Chocolate.
No pie.
Chocolate pie.
But how realistic is it for today's parents and the youth to follow what you just said? Because the problems that we're having in this city, and I'm not going to focus on just the problems, but we're also going to talk about the positive, but is from what the youth are doing and the guidance or lack of guidance that they are receiving.
Yes.
So how realistic is it for them to follow what you just said?
I think it's very realistic, because I'm talking about starting early. I mean, there are new children being born every day.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't worry about what I don't say you don't worry about it. Perhaps there are some people who maybe this not be a message that they're willing to hear because they're listening to different voices now. But for young children, start now. Start reading to them and having them read to you. Make sure that you are invested in their upbringing at their schools. Don't just wait till there's a problem and then go up and yell at the teacher. Sit down and if not do work with them. Maybe you don't know how to do that work, but let them teach you. Maybe they don't understand calculus or maybe even whatever the math is now.
Yeah, they have
But
new math now.
Yeah, let them brag on themselves by showing you take an interest in that. We can all find a little more time to spend with youth development in our own homes. And that's why I talked about community. Because if Johnny goes to jail, you're going to find time then to go down there. If something happens at school, you're going to find time to go and yell at the teacher. But if we spend time helping Johnny early and helping to make sure that we invest in Johnny's value system, then I think we start to turn things around. There's a saying now that goes something like, hurt people hurt people. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So a person who is wounded or hurt, if they don't get another model or they don't get some intervention, then they will go on to hurt someone else, and we have to stop the cycle. Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, Judge, I want to ask you a question. This is related to what Adam was saying, talking about what we can do that's I think what he's trying to say is we have young people now who are in the community who have, they're hurt. And part of that process has been, in my opinion, has been the influence of our music and our culture. Nowadays we have YouTube, we have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have all these different social media platforms. And, they can be used for good or they can be used for bad influences. One of the things that Adam and Trini and myself have tried to focus on is creating an atmosphere where we can bring out positive role models and have young people follow those role models. And that's a difficult proposition. But the reason why we do shows like this and why we have you here is so we can say we have judges, we have people who have influence, who have made it from the bottom and who've made it, as your story is so great because so many young people experience what you've experienced in a different way nowadays, obviously.
Sure.
So I think my question to you is, can you see some ways that we can, have you thought about, have you seen these social media influences? Have you seen all these different ways that people have been, young people have been influenced by these new technologies? And do you have an idea? Because I know you may have seen them in the court, you may have seen them in your practice. Have you got some ideas how we can use these different media platforms to help young people in the ways you talked about?
I have seen them, until I didn't know very much about social media because when I was on the federal courts, the U.S. Marshals and the Administrative Office of the courts told us as judges, don't engage in the use or consumption of social media. So the extent of my social media was an email account. And I still love email. I think that's largely becoming Flintstonian now, but still I do.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know about some of the others, but yes, I do know that people use that. But, any technology that comes along can be used for good or bad. And I think the whole thing comes down to choices that we make. Some of the things that I hear about on YouTube and TikTok, I hear people are at early ages making lots of money. I mean, I heard a story about one woman who became a young woman who became a multimillionaire. She was just going around and posing in different outfits beside trash cans.
Yes. Yeah.
And she'd post them to some media site, and then somebody got hold of it, and then people started asking her, "Would you wear my brand and pose?"
Yeah, exactly.
And so she did that. Somebody else might take that same medium and show guns or other things. The marshals have shown me.
Oh yeah,
people
they've done
posing.
Yeah.
With guns and babies dressed in gang clothing. And I think the reason that happens for that person who's putting a baby up there and having that says something about that person's value system. So I think it goes back down to that denominator of values and integrity. I want to tell you this. It seems like every question you ask me, I have a long story. But
it's okay, Judge.
Okay.
Please tell the story.
Thank you. In I believe it was 2005, I tried the first federal death penalty prosecution in Western Tennessee. It involved three guys who had robbed a bank, and I won't call the name of the bank, but they'd robbed a bank here in Memphis and shot a security guard and killed a customer who was in the bank. And it was such a brutal thing. These were young men. Two of them gave instructions to the third one that they came late to the game. They said, "Look, we're going to take you to the bank. When we drive up there, there's a security guard. He's been watching us. You walk in, and when you walk past him, then pivot and turn around and shoot him." And the person did that. And they said, "When we hear the shot, it'll be our cue to come in." And they went in. They wounded the security guard, who thankfully survived, and they killed the customer. So I had the case, and I tried the first of the three, the actual trigger person. And the U.S. government went for the death penalty in that case. The jury, after hearing his story, they were sitting there pulling napkins and crying. And so I knew instinctively that I was not going to have to sign a death warrant.
But it's, you may get life in prison or something.
That if it's a death charge and they don't do death, the person automatically gets life.
Yes, ma'am.
But based on hearing that person's life unfold, I talked to my sister, and we decided we would start a program called For Life. And that program was to teach young children how to become productive citizens. And we started this about 2 weeks after the case. We taught them things like how to have an appropriate telephone conversation, how to read the newspaper. Incidentally, the entry fee for this course was you must have a library card. We taught them how to dress, how to eat a proper meal when you've got lots of utensils on the table, how to write a resume, how to sit during an interview, it was just wonderful things. And parents came with these people. And then we brought people from the county out from the gang department. And we had somebody who was over the gang unit at the time come in and talk to the young people. And we had about 15 in the group. And we had the other person go in and talk to the adults, because this was it was such a great program. Parents and grandparents came also to watch the children perform. There was one young man in the class who had a difficult family situation, and my sister and I supported him while he talked to his mother, and she agreed to let him go and live with an intact family.
Really?
And I would go by on Saturdays to check on him. We had to go to the city schools and get a tutor for him, and that worked out well. But I went by one Saturday morning, and this young man, who was one of only 2 people who held their hands saying, "I think I want to be in a gang," he was out there that Saturday morning, Adam, with the father in that unit. They were planting a garden.
Really?
He was tilling the soil. I've never seen him look so peaceful and so content, because he was in an environment that was secure. He had people who cared about him. Absolutely.
And Judge,
and that's something people crave.
the program that you had, and Adam and Trini and myself.
Is it had or still have? Is it still in existence?
No, it's not. I'm trying to get it back together when I stopped moving at 200 miles an hour. But when I got promoted to a particular court, then we let it go for a while. But it was one of the things that brought me so much joy. I was fulfilling my passion, and it helped people.
And what I want to say was, what Trini and Adam and myself, we're in the music business, and the things you laid out are perfect scripts for TikTok. Those kind of scripts, you not only reach 10 people or 15 people, you reach millions of people, because there's a and because you have your experience is primarily in the legal profession and the law, and our profession is reaching a lot of people with entertainment. Those entertainment products can also be educational products too, and also what you just described are excellent scripts for TikTok videos, and those are the kind of things that we want to try to create with the interviews that we do, to listen to those great ideas and then take those ideas and make those into things that the young people now will consume, and then it will be more influential. One thing I learned in working in the music business is that young people love this business, and if you want to reach young people, you go after things they love to do. And so what you just described are great scripts. Trini, what do you think about that?
It's true. I mean, a lot of young people are very hungry to get that valuable information and wisdom from people who've already been there and done that, and see that also that you come from a particular background and made it to where you are. I know you have sown a lot of seeds over the years and planting them into younger people, including myself. Anytime you see young people, you tend to plant those seeds, whether you are doing it intentionally or not. I think it's just in your genes, in your mind, in your heart, in your soul at this point. But along with that, though, it has encouraged a lot of other people to do the same thing, because along with having adopted school programs and mentoring other people around and all of that. So it's very, very encouraging to see that. And just like Nesby was saying, though, use that technology still yet with those nuggets that you have.
Yes.
And then plant that out there, and there'll be people listening There'll be
Absolutely.
parents listening. There'll be children listening. There'll be youth listening. There'll be older people listening. And they'll be wanting to use those same things to make a difference in our community. Because actually, there's a lot of great things that come out of Memphis. People tend to look at all the bad things, or when we see certain things that be bad. And when you look at the news, sometimes you see quite a few bad things on the news on who shot John and everything. But there's a lot of tremendous great things that happen in Memphis, and that's why we want to do this with the program here, along with
Sure.
Nesby and Adam and myself, to actually make sure that people can see the greatness of Memphis, and you've been a pivotal part of that, and we appreciate that. And we not just in the courtroom, but in the community room as a whole.
Absolutely.
And representing that.
I've been fortunate, Pastor Williams. When I started to down this journey, at least the judgeship journey, there was an incident that occurred that, for me, was not acceptable. I've always read. I guess, I was a child of the '60s, and so we were sort of raised to say that we could change the world. And I was in court one day. I was a public defender. It wasn't my client, but there was a young woman standing before the judge who looked like she was about 4'10", and she was very pregnant. I mean, she was visibly pregnant, and she wanted an attorney. And because, as you know, if you're charged with a crime that carries jail time, you're entitled to have the court appoint a lawyer for you if you can't afford one on your own.
Yes.
And this young woman was not some hardened criminal. She was accused of shoplifting. She was standing before the judge, and the judge was going through a colloquy to determine whether or not she was indigent. The judge asked her initially appropriate questions like, her name and her age and her source of income. And the woman said that her source of income was either welfare or AFDC, aid for families with dependent children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all appropriate. The judge then asked her, do you have any jewelry or any stocks and bonds that you can use to sell and hire an attorney? And the woman said no. After that, the judge said, how many children do you have? And the woman, I think, said 3 or 4. The judge said, and I see that you're pregnant now. Are you having more children to get a bigger welfare check?
That's really interesting.
And that got my attention because that's we're not in family or fraternity court.
Yeah.
We were in criminal court. Yeah. And it really I've started to focus on this. The judge then asked the question, do any of these children have the same father? And the stereotypes in my mind are jumping off the page at that point.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then she went on to ask the woman, and who is the father of this child? The bailiff went over to the woman and said, you heard the judge, who's the father of this child? Totally out of bounds. Yeah. And that is the moment, Pastor Williams, when I decided I can do better than that. And I decided to run for judge. Had no idea really never given it a thought before. But I believe that every individual, no matter what the crime is that they are entitled to be treated with dignity and respect.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because it is the crime that they're charged with. Their being there is not a crime. And if you can't get treated with dignity and respect in court or in church and synagogue or temple, where else can you have a reasonable expectation? And so that's the thing that motivated me to run. At the time I started, I didn't realize that there had never been an African-American woman judge in the history of Tennessee. I didn't know that. I was just focused on the goal of becoming judge. And I said at the time on camera that I was going to be the best judge. I would treat everybody with dignity and respect. And I said, if there ever comes a time when I start to see people as guilty until proven innocent, I hope I will have the courage to walk away and not just stay because there is a check coming. Mm-hmm. I didn't reach the point where I ever saw people as guilty until proven innocent, but I did want to move someplace else and do something else. And I did, and I became the first African-American woman in the history of the United States to serve in a bankruptcy court. And I asked myself, in 1988, why would I be the first woman? Well, we never know why God blesses us the way he does. Mm-hmm. We never know what he sees or what he has for us that we don't see ourselves. But I went to that position because I believe that if there's not already a path that's been hewn, It's your job to cut a path and light it so that somebody else can follow that path. And it's okay to be a first, but it's more important that after that first, there's a second, third, fourth, and so on and so on. Because what I said at first, people can't be what they can't see.
Yes.
And I have never withdrawn from the community because I want to have an influence. I'll tell you one other thing, and this is not an answer to any question that anybody posed to me, but my mother taught all of us to be unafraid to stand, even in the face of opposition. And I learned that lesson the hard way in junior high school. You know, I didn't have, Mr. Blanchard, a recognizable talent.
Oh,
I went to a school where there were a lot of talented people.
not talented. Huh?
They could sing and dance and play instruments, and they were wonderful. And I couldn't do any of those things, but I loved talent. And I would always go to the talent program. And one day, after a lot of trying and persuasion, I got the talent coordinator to allow me to be on the talent program to recite a poem. You might imagine that was not well received. And
Yes, ma'am.
in junior high school, I got booed off the stage. But when they started booing, I thought, well, they're inviting me to leave, but I'm going to decline this invitation. And so I stayed out there.
Yes, ma'am.
And it taught me some important things that I want young people to understand.
When they go low, you go high.
Well, that was Michelle. But I want them to understand that embarrassment won't kill you. Rejection won't kill you. Humiliation won't even kill you. If you're standing for something, don't be afraid to stand, even if nobody else stands with you at that moment, because there will come a time when others will come and stand with you shoulder to shoulder, and you've got to be unafraid to be you.
Yes.
To be you and to be true to you. You don't have to set aside your principles for acceptance. It's okay to stand alone because you will not always stand alone. I know there was a song that says you will never walk alone. Well, you will at times walk alone.
Yeah,
but
that's
don't
true.
be afraid to walk, even if you are walking alone.
Now, you have some things that you've done over the years. When you began as an attorney and then on as a judgeship, and throughout those years. Now, along with that, though,
being appointed by several presidents.
yes, being appointed by several presidents as well. And can you elaborate on that? And also, after elaborating on that, what is the most significant thing you've seen yourself doing over the years? Because I see more than just Judge Donald. I see something more significant than that. So can you elaborate on that as well?
Sure.
And do you keep the president's phone number on speed dial? Can you just call him when you want to? If you need a hookup on something, can you just call Clinton or Obama for anything?
No, my mother taught me early on that there will never be anybody who will be there for you more consistently than your family.
Yes.
So family is first for me.
Yes,
But
yes.
and I was happily on the Bankruptcy Court. I went on there in 1988, and as I mentioned, the first African-American woman in the U.S. history to serve. I thought I would retire from that court. But in 1995, my congressman, Harold Ford Sr., called me. I was in Asheville, North Carolina at the time, attending a judicial conference. And he told me that in 3 days, he was going to need to submit someone's name to replace Judge Horton. And he wanted to know if he could recommend me. And I said yes. He recommended me to President Clinton. And that was in July when that conversation occurred. And on December 7th of 1995, President Clinton nominated me. You have to go to the Senate and be confirmed. But Harold Ford was a drum major in whatever project he took on. And he worked with them. Normally, when a judge is nominated, at least 2 weeks have to elapse before they will give you a hearing. President Clinton nominated me on December 7th. I had my hearing on December 19th. And if you count, that's not, that's not quite
12 days, not even 2 weeks.
Yeah,
right.
Not counting the weekend.
And then, so I had a hearing on the 19th. The Senate voted me out on December 22, and President Clinton signed my commission on December 26. And that was all the doing of Harold Ford, drum major.
And that was a good Christmas present.
It was a great one.
Yes, it was.
And then he told me the importance of me going ahead taking the oath, because he says your seniority starts the minute you take that oath. And I was on the district court, stayed there 15 and a half years. And then President Obama nominated me in 2010 for the U.S. Court of Appeals, which is one level below the U.S. Supreme Court. Congress adjourned, and if you don't get a hearing and get voted on in one session of Congress, you have to be renominated. So President Obama nominated me again in January of 2011, and I was confirmed. Incidentally, when the Senate was voting on me, I was in Istanbul, Turkey, attending a judicial conference. I couldn't even watch it on TV. Somebody called me and said, they're voting on you, and some senators who were not expected to say nice things about you are saying nice things. But you talk about other things. I think for me, the opportunity to travel, the opportunity to have met a number of justices, the opportunity to have served my community. Memphis is a great city.
Yes, it is.
It is a great city, and it's great because the people of Memphis are great. I feel it my duty and my joy and my pleasure wherever I go to be an ambassador for this city. I believe in it. The people who came before me allowed me to stand on their shoulders, to bask in their light. They created a path so that I would have an opportunity. And when I think about the sacrifice of the people of this community, and I need to say one thing. AFSCME Local 1733. Remember Dr. King came to Memphis?
Yes.
For that union, the sanitation workers. That union supported me. They campaigned for me. They encouraged me. They had people out at polls for me. I shall always be grateful. And when there is something tough that needs to be done, the people who are sometimes at the lowest rung of the ladders are the ones who are going to step up for you. And so
Very true.
I have tried always to honor the trust they reposed in me. I have tried to make not only my city, my parents, my community proud, but those people who gave so much of themselves so that somebody like me
could achieve so much.
Absolutely.
Did you work with Bill Lucy? Was that one of the people you worked with?
Bill Lucy was the secretary treasurer of the union at that time, and I met him. But I'm talking about the people here.
The local people.
Yeah, Taylor Rogers, Jim Smith, Dorothy Crook,
The
Evelyn
grassroots
Liggins.
people,
Absolutely. They were the ones who were going around at churches putting my literature
stuff,
on cards. Those were the people.
Okay.
And I have, I had an opportunity to visit with Miss Crook not too long ago and take her to dinner for her birthday. But I treasure that. And I think that the one thing that we can do is give of ourselves to and show model giving, model valuing, not just people in positions of power, but model the people who grace
people.
us with their dignity and allow us really to serve.
Well, let me ask you something.
Yes.
Excuse me, Trina. I don't mean to talk over you, but I do. I do it every episode.
Yeah, you sure do. And why do you do that?
I gotta be consistent.
But why do you do that?
I'm being consistent.
We need to stop that, though.
I'm consistently doing that.
I think we need to get Nesby on this.
Okay, I'll speak up.
I'm from Memphis.
So in the things, and then
You just talked over me.
I want to hear from Mr. Holyfield.
I have a question.
Yes.
The judge has spoken.
The judge has spoken.
Now, being the judge,
Yes, sir.
when you would go into certain rooms around friends or family or both, did that conversation stop? Did people get tight around you, treat you different, ask for a hookup? Like, can you take care of this ticket for me? Did you get all of that?
People sometimes joke about those kind of things, but one of the things that I'm really proud of is that people say to me, "You're just a regular person." But when I get on the bench, the regularity stops because I'm judged then. And I have a job to do. I have the law to apply, and I uphold the respect of the institution. But when I am in community, I am just as wonderful and kind as anyone else, because my job in the community is not to be the judge, even though I talk about judicial things and I will speak to groups. But when I don that black robe, uh, one man in front of me in court decided that he was not going to respect the position. Now, you might not respect me as an individual, but you're going to respect the institution and all that it stands for. And I had to hold him in not civil contempt,
Criminal
but
contempt.
criminal contempt. And he had some pretty choice things to say. But
Did you hit him with the gavel?
he probably would have much relished.
He'd rather get that than criminal
Rather.
contempt.
Yes, than what he ended up doing. And but to his credit, he said some really mean things to me, and I ultimately let his case go to a different judge. But when he was ultimately sentenced by that judge, he asked to be brought back before me before he went off to do his time, and he came back to me and said to me, "I want to apologize to you for the disrespect I showed. I was wrong." And that is a sign, I think, of maturity. But people don't just owe you that respect. You have to respect the process and the people and the institution, and you carry yourself in respect, and then it's reciprocated.
So before he left out that court, did you say you gonna learn today? Did you have any kind of catchphrase or
Oh
anything?
my God.
No, I that's I'm no Judge
She didn't have a
Judy.
punchline.
None of that.
I'm
You know,
no Judge
yeah, you know.
Judy, okay? I believe, remember I told you that I think dignity and respect is in order, no matter what the offense, no matter who the person. And I don't want to ever lower my standards because somebody else acts badly and lowers theirs.
Mhm. And you know what? Your morals, your integrity, your accountability, your honesty, all that everybody knows about, And I've talked to different people from all different levels, and they have a high regard and respect for you as an individual, as a woman, as Bernice Donald, and as a judge as well. And so it supersedes you, and it's just amazing. That's why we're so excited. Usually when we have our shows, we usually casualed out. Okay, we have on our T-shirts and black shirts.
I had to go
and
get a
We have
jacket.
our caps and all of that.
Or if we're
But-
around the judge, we're sitting here crying because we're trying to show sympathy and trying to get out of a ticket or something like that.
Right,
Ain't
but
that right,
today-
Nesby? No.
Usually
Right, but
that's
today
right,
we
yeah.
went on and went suited and booted a little bit more so that we can actually,
Yeah, show some
so we
respect.
actually have that for
Sure.
you. And
Well, I thank you. And I want to say this.
And we're trying to get a
You
street
know-
named after ourselves.
Yeah,
also.
we hit the street. You gonna help us with that?
Well, back
What do we have to do to get a street named after us?
You got to
Well-
be nominated by
Can you
Hereford.
nominate-
Well, in July, I was very honored. Councilwoman Jana Swearingen Washington had the vision because of, she said, my career and the things that I had demonstrated through my life and my life's work to name a street in my honor. And I was so thrilled and pleased, but the entire city council unanimously voted to name a portion of Front Street between Poplar and Beale in my honor. And
Amazing.
the public ceremony for that occurred on October 19 at the Renaissance Convention Center. More than 800 or so people attended that event, and they were well-wishers. Mayor Paul Young spoke. He reflected on Memphis as a great city. Congressman Cohen appeared and talked about Memphis as a global city. And the reason I think this city is so significant is because it's what it speaks to about our history. Memphis, at the time it was founded in 1918, and Front Street rather, when Memphis was founded, was the first street east of the river. There wasn't a riverside, that was underwater, that was the riverbed. But the first street was Front Street, so that was the base of the city. The base of the city up on a bluff. And there was a time up on that bluff, people came with picnic baskets and all, and watched hangings. Ida B. Wells, in her time, had a press, and she really campaigned against lynchings because
Yes.
the people who were being lynched rather looked like us. And then the two industries at that time, up and down that street, were cotton and slavery. So cotton merchants made fortunes, but it was people
It was a
in the
third.
fields of Mississippi,
Yes.
Arkansas, and
It was
Tennessee.
a third.
What was the third one?
There was a big brothel there also.
Well, okay.
Not that I keep up with brothels.
Of course
and,
not, Alan.
and not only that, but Memphis is big on lumber as well.
Well,
during that time?
initially-
Well, that's part of the
Yes.
Yeah,
brothel
because
game.
we had a lot of hardwood.
Wood.
But the thing that brought so many African Americans to Memphis was the importation of slaves.
Exactly.
And that was
Yes.
occurring even after 1808 when slavery had been banned. But in any event, my family picked cotton, and I'm sure it was brought here. But now, if you look along that section of Bill Street that's named
Yeah.
in my honor, you have, first of all,
That's
the
profound.
Citadel of Justice.
That's
The federal
profound,
court
yeah.
building has its public
Yes.
interest on Front Street.
Yes,
And it
yes.
begins
Mm-hmm.
there at Poplar, where you have the Cannon Center.
Yeah.
I had
Yes.
my investiture there in 2011.
Okay.
You have an interest to City Hall on Front Street.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have the University of Memphis, a world-class
And the
law school,
Yeah.
is there on Front Street. The headquarters of AutoZone, a company whose stock trades at above $3,000
yeah.
a share,
Oh, yeah.
is
Yes.
on that part of Front Street. There are hotels, financial institutions, Raymond James and others. There are all kind of things up and down there. And that speaks to the nod that we give to the past,
Yeah.
but also our casting
the future.
glances for our future.
Yes.
And it talks about the distance we've come
It's a long
as a
way,
city
Judge.
and a people.
Together.
And I believe that if we do nothing else, we must commit ourselves to continue to build communities of prosperity and culture as well as economics. So we have got to do that. And I people who used to perhaps work in the two industries I mentioned. I'm not going to speak to the industry you mentioned, Adam.
Actually, there's another one. Music.
Absolutely. And
we
so
left
now
that one
people
out.
own
Okay. Right.
things. Yes. So
So, Judge, I want to ask you, and to continue that point and to kind of reach a closing here.
Yes.
So, what do you see you've done? We talked about where you started.
Yes.
Okay. You talked about some of the things you've done in your life and what your inspirations were. You've talked about some challenges you've had. You've talked about things that changed and motivated you. So I think to close out, what do you think about the future? I mean, you've had a street
Yes.
dedicated to you. You've served the president. You served the public. So now this part of your life, now what's next?
And along with that, for your answer, the future for what you plan on doing, as well as the future on what you plan for, what you expect for us to do as a community, not just Adam, Nesby, and myself, but as a community of Memphis. What's the future you expect for Memphis to do?
And
to
also,
have?
I'm gonna add something to it. Also, what would you say to the younger you that was in that 2-room school back in Olive Branch?
you know, I would.
If you can go back in time.
Well, what I would say to those people is, you must seize opportunity. But in order to seize opportunity, you must be prepared. You see, success I define as when preparation meets opportunity, because if you're not prepared, you can't embrace
take
that
advantage.
opportunity.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, don't confine your dreams narrowly. Keep them expansive, but understand the fuel for a dream is hard work, preparation, and linking with other people
Yes.
who will help you get to where that relationships. Absolutely. I would say that. And for our city, we have to all become ambassadors for our city. We
Yes,
have to
indeed.
make our city the city we want it to be. You see, we are the change that we've been waiting for.
Exactly.
We just have to embrace that. And it starts very early. When we don't invest in our young people, when we don't help them form that value system, when we don't provide an environment that allows them to be the best that they can be, and we don't encourage them to be that, then we
Yes.
are not only abdicating our responsibility as community leaders, but we're letting them down. For my future, well, people say, well, you retired in 2023, and I did stay retired for 7 days. I think,
7
maybe
days.
9, I don't know. I retired on the 23rd, and and I went to work again on the 1st. I am an arbitrator, peacemaker, mediator. I do mock trial consultations, and I work for a law firm starting in January of 2024. I work for the historic Birch, Porter, and Johnson law firm. They're the ones who stopped I-40 from coming through the center of the city. You may think that's a terrible thing because it enhances time to your route, but this firm did that. This firm also argued for the creation through the water connection for the Tunica Casino, so they were a big part of that. They represented Dr. King, went to court to help get the injunction to allow him to do the march when he came here to march. And they've done any number of things. And so I'm now at that law firm. I am a partner, and I do primarily mediation, arbitration, and I do my life's work. I think has been, maybe it didn't have the name then, but it continues to be the education of a nation about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we cannot stand as a divided community where we measure each other's worth based on skin color.
Yes.
Yes, Judge.
So when are
Yes,
you going to
indeed.
get a television show?
Adam,
I
when
mean, you got all these other judges on television. I think you'll make a great
well,
television
Adam,
star.
I say to you, make it happen.
Make it happen.
Hey,
Well,
Y'all make it happen.
Malik can do the film.
Make it happen, y'all.
Make it happen, Malik.
hey.
Well, we
Sounds
do
good to
have a
me.
studio being started here. Maybe we could make it happen.
Yeah.
That's
Please
true.
make it happen.
Yeah,
Pastor Williams.
you'd be a great inspiration for young people. You know, I've done volunteer work for Adopt a School, Big Brother, Big Sister. We've been advocates for a work release program with the Shelby County Sheriff Department and the county jail. And so, you know, the value in having someone like you to inspire people is awesome. Because young people need inspiration. They need someone to say, I can do that. So your future is, if we can make this future, including some of the social media, I think your future would be a great intersection.
Yes,
I would love to do that, but I also still want to teach, and I think we need a lot of educating around laws, because I think there are pitfalls for people, and
Ignorance on the law is no excuse,
that's it. You got it. And I want to help people look out for some of the minefields
Yes,
and
ma'am.
help them have a positive, productive, free future.
Good way.
And we thank you for giving us this time today. You know, I'm still going to be sticking close to you so I can continue to learn and grow in that wisdom and understanding, but also being a help to you and whatever you need to do. This has been an exciting moment for us right here at Memphis Sounds Lounge Show, presented by Star News VIP. Adam, Nesby, and myself, and of course, the Honorable Judge Donald. It's been a privilege of you being here. And guess what? We have more to come. So be sure to, like they say, share, like and subscribe to our channel. And you know what? The best is yet to come. You have a great one.